Well, it's a huge decision, a momentous decision with enormous consequences and implications for Britain, for Europe, probably for the global economy as well. We've got to try and stabilize our situation in the short term, because I think in the days and weeks ahead there will be a lot of uncertainty. I think the Prime Minister's got an enormous job in his hands for the time that remains to try and bring people together. But, there's no hiding it. It is a huge decision, because we've got a whole set of relationships that have grown up over the last 4 decades in Europe of an economic and political nature, and somehow we're going to have to disentangle them.
And what worries you the most of that disentanglement?
I think the economic side primarily, because half of our goods and services are traded into the European single market. So we need to have access to that market. We're now going to have to renegotiate all those agreements, and one of the complications is we're going to have to renegotiate them with all 27 other governments. Most of them will have votes in their parliament. Some may even have their own referendums. And then, of course, you've got the European Parliament. Now, look, the British economy is a strong economy. The British people are resilient people. But, there's no hiding the fact it's going to be a big challenge. And then I think it's got big implications for politics right across the world, because this was a movement, a very strong insurgent movement. It took people from the left and from the right in unity against the European Union, immigration being probably the biggest factor. But it's a big experiment in that type of insurgent politics.
Is Donald Trump right to see this Brexit vote as a harbinger of what might happen with other countries in the EU?
I think, a lot depends on what actually happens in the next few days. I mean, just today we have the pound has fallen in a way not seen for decades. We've had, I think, roughly $200 billion wiped off our financial stock market. I hope this doesn't happen, but there is talk of downgrading our credit rating, which would shove up borrowing costs and therefore put pressure on spending and taxes. So I think a lot depends on what happens over the next months, but for sure there's a huge feeling across Europe. I mean, Britain has voted, but the rest of Europe is also in a state of anxiety about Europe, the direction. These issues like immigration are enormously powerful issues in politics today. The problem is, and one of the things I'm saying to my colleagues from the centre-right and centre-left, is the centre ground's got to get its traction back. We've got to rediscover our ability to find radical, powerful answers in a climate that is often driven by anger and by a revolt against what is perceived as established wisdom in the political class, but often is people trying to make difficult decisions in difficult circumstances.